Ba-dum-bum-bum. Ba-dum-bum-bum. A lot of you've heard me use animal analogies when I'm doing business coaching. So somebody asked, what are all my animal analogies and how do I think about them? Where did I learn them? So these are going to be animal analogies for business and life. So the first one is some flies are too awesome for the wall. I learned this from, or I heard this from the show called The Community. One of the guys was filming a documentary and he ended up saving the day at the end. And at the end, the dean says, "I thought you were just going to be a fly on the wall." And he says, "Some flies are too awesome for the wall." And so people hear me say that when coaches are shy or timid about creating content or sharing their value with the world, is that some flies are too awesome for the wall. So get off the wall, contribute, that type of thing. So cats on the roof. The Cats on the Roof, I learned it originally from an author called Scott Adams. It's a joke actually about how you let somebody down with bad news slowly. So the story is that they ask you to watch their cat and then they go on a vacation and the cat dies right away. But you don't want to ruin their vacation, so you're on the phone, you hop on the phone with them and you say, uh, how's the cat? It's like, oh, the cat's fine. It's on the roof, but I'm trying to get it down, and don't worry about it. And you call him the next day and you say, oh, how's the cat? Well, the cat fell off the roof and he's hurt, but I'm bringing him to the vet, and the vet says that he'll be fine. And then the next day they call back and you say, the cat's not doing well. It's not going to be good. And then the last day or when they get back, you say the cat died. And so it's a way of softening the blow if there's bad news. And so an example for memberships, if I'm coaching, I'll say, is it if their business is struggling, I'll say like, well, is the cat on the roof? Meaning, is is the business dead? Or are you just doing the wrong thing? Or we'll do it a lot if people are quitting or they're leaving. They'll say something that's not quite quitting, but it's like they're softening the blow for a future conversation. So we'll say, is the cat on the roof? Cat's on the roof. I want to make this decision and I don't, it might be bad news, but here it comes. So that's what we use cat on the roof. Jumping the shark. That is from Happy Days. People have said it a lot. I'll use it when if you follow brands for a while, sometimes they'll lose relevance, and so they'll do something that's crazy to get attention, but it's off brand, off message, and so I'll say they're jumping the shark. They're searching for relevance, and they're not relevant anymore. So that's what jumping the shark. Squirrel. So squirrel's from one of those Disney movies. It's the dog just sees squirrels and gets distracted all the time. Uh, Business owners are the same way. So they'll see new things, they'll chase new things, they will squirrel. And we actually, when we were doing our EOS meetings, we would have different animals on the table. And whenever we would get off topic, if it was a squirrel, we'd grab the squirrel and kind of shake it and say, we're off topic, we're focusing on the wrong things. So squirrels, when people and entrepreneurs specifically bounce around, they get their attention stolen. Elephant in the room. I don't know where I learned that. Heard it. Everyone's heard that. Elephant in the room. Same. It's very similar to Cats on the Roof, or it can be. The elephant in the room is like, what's the really obvious thing here? Is it obvious that you hate creating content, right? And that we just need to like say it out loud, speak it. Elephant in the room is saying the obvious thing. And a lot of times in businesses specifically, we'll talk around things and say, we'll try to find other problems, but sometimes the problem is just work harder. Sometimes the problem's really obvious and you just need to say it. So elephant in the room. For every rat you see, there's 50 you don't. I first heard this from Dr. Phil, actually. It was on a parenting show, and they were talking about this kid who got in trouble, and he said that, for every rat you see, there's 50 you don't, meaning in a restaurant, right? If you see a rat, there's probably 50 more rats in the kitchen. If you're a parent and your kid gets in trouble, the one time you catch them, there's probably 10, 50 other times, right, that they've also behaved in a bad way. So for every rat you see, there's 50 you don't. I usually use this with talking about partners or people that we're working with, or even hiring team members, is that, if you see them slip up one time, uh, in a malice way, not a good way, for every one time you catch them, there's usually 50 you don't. So you really want to work with people that are very high integrity, because it's a signal, right? They'll leave you signals about how they behave. Uh, you know, like if you're at a restaurant and the person you're with snaps at the waiter and is in a rude, unforgiving tone, that person will eventually turn and snap on you. And so we default to our defaults. So for every rat you see, there's if you don't work with people that are high integrity, because if you see them behaving not in high integrity, then obviously they're going to do that again to you. The goat. Everyone's heard of the GOAT, greatest of all time. Examples for memberships. I'll use this a lot for describing marketers and coaches to learn from, because especially when you're learning, what you study beats how you study. So if you are studying fewer stuff, but all of the stuff is the highest level, the best learners, the GOATs, the best teachers, then the information's way better. But what a lot of times people will do is they won't study the goat. They'll study the people underneath the goat or the people who studied the goat, and there's just something lost in translation. So learn from fewer people, but learn from higher quality people. One trick pony. People have heard of a one trick pony. It's a pony that has one trick. The for memberships, a lot of times you start off as a one trick pony because you create your membership, you learn how to generate traffic, for however you're doing it, and like that's the one thing that you know. But the reason that that's dangerous is because if the only thing that you know is one platform or one way of doing things, then if that goes away, then you're in trouble. And so you want to avoid being a one trick pony. Um, as you get bigger, because your business is going to be more vulnerable if you only know one way of generating leads. And an example is a couple years ago there was YouTube adpocalypse, they called it. So if you're not a YouTuber, it just meant that everyone's ad revenue crashed, and so that was their main stream of revenue, main source of revenue. Most of them were one trick ponies. They had one source of revenue, and then it destroyed their businesses and destroyed their revenue, and so they had to figure out other ways to monetize, and they were forced to no longer be a one trick pony. The elephant parable. So if you don't know the elephant parable, it's basically that there's a couple of different ways to tell it, but there's five blind people that are all touching an elephant, and one of them's touching the tail, one of them's touching the side, one of them's touching the trunk, and they're describing what it is. And one person's saying, "Oh, it's fuzzy because he's got the tail," and the other person's saying, "No, it's a wall because they're pushing up against the side, and they think it's a wall." Um, and that they're all right, right? And so the the elephant parable is about there's many truths and they can all be right, but they're all incomplete, right? So if you have a membership or if you have a business, you might think that people like your membership because you have 60-minute long videos. And you might be right that some of the people like your membership for that, but maybe lots of other people like it because you do voiceovers or because you have short videos or because you have a calendar. And so just we don't know anything for sure, and anything that we do know is usually incomplete knowledge. So it just uh, gives you a way of thinking, what am I missing? What else could be? What else should I consider? If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, sometimes it's a duck hunter. Where did I learn this? This might have been from Scott Adams too, but I'm not exactly sure. But normally people will say if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. It's a duck essentially. Um, but I use this in if you're hiring like marketers or coaches, a lot of times like Facebook ads people, they are they're taking your money. They're not going to be able to grow your business. They've exaggerated their successes. They've maybe been successful, but they maybe they weren't the real reason why, right? They just hopped on board a rocket ship that's going up. But you got to be careful for these people that make big promises because sometimes they're not making, they're not, it looks like a great marketer, it quacks like a great marketer, but it's a hunter, right? It's somebody who's just trying to take your money. And so if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, sometimes it might be a duck hunter. So be suspicious of people who are trying to take your money. The zebra in the bathtub. I first learned this from John DeMartini, and the story goes that you come home from work, you walk upstairs, and you go to the bathroom, and you see this giant zebra in your bathtub, and you start measuring the stripes, you start counting the stripes, measuring the tail. You notice you notice the feces on the ground, right? But you don't ask the obvious question. So the obvious question is, why is there a zebra in the bathtub? So for memberships, I use this for data analysis. So a lot of times people will uh, measure so many different things that don't matter, and you really want to get clear on like what's the one thing that matters, and then how can you move that one thing forward. But people will, focus on their opt-in rate and getting more people, more opt-ins on their conversions. But really, what you need to focus on is getting more members in your membership. And if you get more opt-ins, that might not do anything for you. In fact, it could even make your memberships worse. And so we want to be really clear, ask the right questions. Why is the zebra in the bathtub? What can I do to grow my membership? The dog in the room. I learned the dog in the room from Scott Adams. So if you're the dog in the room, so the story is that, if your dog has no idea how much smarter you are than it. So when you walk over and you turn the light on, the dog has no idea what's going on. And so the smart person in the room, uh, can be a little bit smarter than you or can be way, way, way smarter than you. And the dumb person in the room, we call it the dog in the room, if you're the dumb person in the room, then you have no idea how much smarter the smarter person is than you. They could be a little bit smarter, but they could be way smarter. And so we'll use the term dog in the room. I'll use that when I know somebody's smarter than me. I'll just say like if I'm recapping it with my wife or talking about what I learned, it's like, oh, I was the dog in the room. They're heads and shoulders above me. But also recognizing when you are the dog in the room, because a lot of times you're aware that the person you're talking to is smarter, has more experience, and is making good recommendations for you and for your business, but for some reason you don't want to listen. And in those environments, when you are the dog in the room, you should take advice from the people and follow it. And you might not even understand why necessarily, but if you trust them and they've helped you in the past, then uh, the reasons why they're recommending it, you might not understand. They're usually right. So the dog in the room is you have no idea how much smarter the smarter person is than you when they are talking to you. Deer in headlights, people know deer in headlights. You're driving, deer goes in front of the car, headlights blind it, and then it gets hit by the car. It freezes, right? And so in memberships, a lot of times when people plateau, especially or when they get started, they are deer in headlights. They're overwhelmed. They don't know, what softwares to use. Should they hire an ads person? What platform should they make? How should they, what should their thumbnails look like? What should their titles be? Like all of the things. They're deer in headlight. And then as a result, they freeze and they just don't do anything. And really, when you're getting started or even, early on, you should focus on one avatar, one platform, one product. And then to solve the deer in headlights problem is you have to focus on what is your biggest constraint. And I've talked about this before. There's five constraints, right? There's leads, conversions, retention, ascension, and delivery. And you got to figure out which one is your constraint, and then you work on that, and you just work on that every day. And that'll help you avoid being a deer in headlights. How do you eat an elephant? How do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. I do not remember where I learned that, but a lot of times when you're building a membership, especially if you're building a membership and you have a lot of content on it, it can be overwhelming. And so with any big task, how do you eat an elephant? You can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. So it's a way of thinking about these big tasks, chunking them down to smaller tasks so they're manageable. How do you eat an elephant? Dancing bear. Dancing Bear. So I learned this from Roland Frazier said it, but he said he got it from Tony Robbins. Dancing bears when you're a coach or a consultant, and when you're dancing, when you're working, you're making money and people are happy. But when you stop dancing, when you stop working, uh, they don't want to pay you or you're not getting paid. And so in business online, you can have these traps where you're a dancing bear, where you have to dance in order to make money. And so you want to set up your membership, excuse me, you want to set up your membership in a way where you don't need to be a dancing bear, where you have, leads and you have profits coming in, but they don't require you to become a dancing bear and put on a show and show up for work. And so dancing bear it's a trap that your business model can get you in, where the only way you make money is by working. So you're always trading time for money, and you want to avoid that trap. So. Those are my business analogies. If you want business and life analogies, if you want help learning to grow your membership, I have a Skool link down below this video, and I'd love to see you in there. Hope this was helpful.